This podcast is sponsored by Xgrowth. Xgrowth is the APAC ABM agency. If you and your organization are looking to land and expand enterprise and mid-market deals, Xgrowth is the agency to help. Xgrowth works with a wide range of international and global technology vendors, service providers, and B2B SaaS companies. If this sounds like something you're interested to know more about, make sure to check out Xgrowth at xgrowth.com.au. That's xgrowth.com.au and chat with the APAC ABM agency.
What's up, marketers, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Colony podcast. I'm Liza from Xgrowth to tell you that each episode we bring in B2B leaders to chat about how you can achieve those everyday wins in the marketing world. Whether you're new to the B2B game, working at a leadership level, or even just showing some interest, we know you'll love the episode. So grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. I'm Shaheen Hoda with Xgrowth, and today I'm talking to Marcus Olds, VP Commercial International at Salesloft, about how should organizations go about sell and market in a down economy. Let's dive in. Marcus, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
Hey, absolute pleasure. So I don't think it's any secret to everyone. Market is very volatile and it changes rapidly. And it's for a lot of industries, it's not looking great. And I really want to kind of get a sense from your side. And let's start high level. I'd love to know, what would you say the main strategies for companies are that they can consider in terms of selling and marketing in a down economy? And let's start from there, and then we'll dive deeper.
All right, yeah, let's go nice broad strokes then, huh?
That's it, exactly.
Look, unless you're a debt collector right now, you're right, the market's going to be a little bit more difficult than what it was, say, 12 months ago. We like to say that last year the fish were jumping in the boat, and now we're fishing. And I guess what we think about that is, how do we laser focus in on what are you actually trying to achieve? What we're actually trying to achieve in most businesses is either keeping the lights on, or if you've really got strong product market fit, accelerating right now. And so, some initiatives that we've been thinking about here at Salesloft are, I guess, one, move away from price. It's probably counterintuitive, but the harsh realities are, if you're going and asking for money from any company, you are risk, and risk is hard to eat right now. And so what we think about that is, a lot of companies we see make the mistakes of going like, what I want to do is I'll get price off the cards right now. We'll give you X discount, or what would it need to be for you to win the deal today? And your economic buyer, your champions, they're all telling you, I really want this, I really need this, whatever you're selling. Gets to your CFO, CFO says absolutely not. And so what we're focusing on now is business value realization. How quickly can you get the return? So that's something we definitely focus on now. How do I show you from today, at what point can you stare at me over the table and say, I have made you, or I've either made you more money or saved you more money than the cost associated with itself? That's definitely one important point. And that might just be like, how quickly is your adoption curve? How quickly can you deploy? How quickly do you start to see, improvements in your sales cycle if that's what you're selling? The second thing that we're thinking about is, with all due respect to every salesperson listening to this, they don't have the same level of gravitas or, I guess, ability to engage with another C-level. So the second thing we look at is, we used to think that adding a me or a CEO to the sales cycle added value, and you'd be thrown into the theater right at the very end to get a deal over the line, and you're really just there for show and pomp. But now we're starting to think like, get us in early. So when you think about that down market, you're going to be selling probably two aspects. You're going to be selling the the masses, the stuff that you've always sold, those inbound inquiries that come through that you turn over in a week, or that smaller deal, that smaller land from some speculative business that just still wants to buy your product. But we Pareto law it, right? So most businesses on listening in today are going to have a dozen accounts, dozen opportunities, maybe 10% of their opportunities that make 60, 70% of their revenue. Get your execs in early, align early, make sure there's a partnership across the executives, and you'll see a lot of value. And the third thing in the down market is, don't think about revenue as net new versus growth. In a down market, your fresh ratio doesn't make much of a difference. What you're really thinking about is, how do I grow? And like, if you're talking to a lot of software businesses out there, your lifetime value is going to be critical here. How much additional products and services can I sell to my existing customer base? I'm sure we'll dive in further there later on in the next kind of half an hour.
Okay, got it. So let's I want to summarize the three. So you talked about move away from the price.
Yeah.
And that's not a factor. And I want to talk a little bit about that, come back to that. The second one that you said was that salesperson probably need assistance earlier from executives in the buying journey, especially for those larger deals. And then the last one was very interesting, that the idea of not thinking about net new versus growth and taking a different approach. So on that first point, how would you approach it? You talked about value. The term you used was business value realization.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let's break that down. You've mentioned a few KPIs that you would look at.
Yeah.
But what would be the core KPIs that you would say for every deal the salesperson needs to unpack for them to have a higher chance of closing?
Oh, where do we start? I wish it was as easy as, here's the silver bullet, guys. What I need you to do is jump on a call, say this line, and the next thing you know, you got an opportunity. I would probably widen it out a little bit further than that. In its core, you've really got these two things. Why do people buy anything in a world of B2B anyway? So if you're buying a consumer, you might buy it because it makes you happy, or you buy it because you specifically need it. But in a world of B2B, it's going to be, can you make me money? Can you save me money? That is really it. Like, there have to be the two outcomes. How do you do that is the interesting part, and it's where your product fits within that spectrum. Your ideal world would be, I can save you money and in turn make you money. But what we think about here is, like, how do I increase your revenue? That might be, can I unlock you more pipeline? Can I win you more deals, improve your conversion rate? Can I increase your maximum? Can I maximize your lifetime value? Maybe I want to reduce your cost, right? So I'm reducing my cost. Maybe I can coach your teams better. Maybe I can therefore increase their efficiency. Maybe I can help you retain your talent, so you don't have to worry about the cost of rehiring and the cost of re-ramping all your team, where you see this big nosedive in terms of your high level. Maybe I just simply want to simplify your tech stack. Look at this world of this big push across the US. We're seeing it in EMEA now. We're starting to see it in APAC, which is when the market was absolutely bloated with cash, and cash was cheaper than water for the last 2 years. What was happening was people were just buying speculatively, and now we're seeing this big push for consolidation, and then in turn that can save you a lot of cost. Whether that simply be the time to resource it, the time to service it, but also just the sheer invoice costs of having too many vendors. Maybe it's spending more time selling. How do I just get you more productive, more salespeople being more productive, speaking to more customers? And all of that is really driven around driving predictability. Can I drive predictability into my organization, therefore driving operational efficiencies? And that should answer your questions, but covered a lot of ground there. But these are the kind of things we're thinking about when we start thinking about how do we sell into the downturn.
I love it. I mean, this also kind of spills into the marketing message and what you're putting out in the market. And I want to touch on, what you're doing from a marketing perspective to kind of grab those attentions. But I definitely feel like this spills into that as well.
Oh yeah, marketing, huh? Like the age-old sales versus marketing. The thing is, the way we think about marketing at Salesloft is, their job is really to educate the market, raise awareness of the problems we solve, the solutions that we have, to smooth out that justification and selection of us as a vendor, whether that be that first initial land or whether that be that ongoing conversation around improving our product mix or adding more users into the platform. So when we kind of saw the market shifting a little bit, and we've seen it in the US last year, we're seeing it now in EMEA, we're starting to see the early signs of it in APAC now. And we sat down with marketing, we said, like, what do we want to do? What we want to do is we want to consolidate our core. We don't want to lose any customers. We want to find an opportunity to win those customers that are still buying, or we could have a good opportunity of buying. And we want to maximize our sales times efficiency. And so when marketing were originally going like, what I want to do and what we were targeted into, because Salesloft is in a really luxury position where we do have a very, very big TAM. We're really any business that does sales by phone and email, any business that simply does sales is probably going to be in our addressable market. And so we were like this greenfields market, more opportunities in the boat. And now we're doing two things. One, we're looking at, well, where do we find opportunity? So we laser focused in on where are we finding white space within our core business? Who are our happiest customers that don't have our entire product mix? Where are we seeing potential risk on our renewals where we haven't seen an overly happy customer? And we're laser focusing marketing's dollar there. How do we make sure that they are raising awareness, communicating to those customers that we will save churn on? And the second side of things is we really went in on, well, what's our ICP? Well, what's our ideal customer profile? And we kind of knew it, but we got a little bit lax as the market was really warm to what could we bring on board? Is it okay to take a business that converts it, or a profile that converts at 25% where everything else converts at 35%? Yeah, probably. In a good market, that's right. In a market that's down, that 25% very quickly becomes 5%, 4%. And so we really started focusing in on, well, what exactly have we seen value on? And the easiest way, if you haven't already got it, and we were in a luxury position where we did know it. I have this old adage, which is don't try and fix the roof when it's raining, right? And we were trying to fix the roof. We knew it when it was sunny, and so we were in a good position. But if you don't know it, the easiest thing to do is go look at the customers that have been with you the longest. Simple as that. Go look at the customers that have been with you the longest and go and converse with them. Why did you buy us? What value do you get from us? That's going to give you all the indication you need. Then go on something like, SimilarWeb, or, just Google it. Who are their competitors? And go after them. They're going to be the ones that we're really driving. Just get marketing laser focused in on it. But don't stop marketing is usually the other thing. Usually we find that they just stop marketing, like, budgets are tight. We had to cut back on marketing. That's the worst thing they could potentially do in the world. The only time I would ever encourage you to do that is if you're like Series A, pre-Series A, and you've got enough to keep you afloat, but you just don't know what your customer profile is, and you just go throw money at the wall. But if you know what your ICP is, and you've got good product market fit, now is the time to accelerate, because businesses will gravitate to best-in-class technology at the moment.
Love it. Okay. Let's talk about kind of executive involvement in the sales process, right? Mm-hmm. Where would you say, so you talked about how previously it was you, I think you used the term show and pump.
Yeah.
For salespeople for executives getting involved, really like in that last day to say, hey, we really care about you, sign the dotted line.
Yeah.
You're saying it's important to get involved earlier in the process.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Like, what stage are we talking about? Are we, there are some people that I've seen they're building executive outreach program where the executives are reaching out. Now, whether the executive themselves are reaching out or that's happening for them, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But some organizations go at the very beginning in the outreach process and in the kind of sales development process with the executives. What are your thoughts when you say, you got to go out early you got to bring executives earlier in the process.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. Let's unpack that a little bit more in terms of what you mean by that.
So, do I encourage every executive on the call to start making cold calls alongside their BDRs? No, right? That's not a good use of their time, and we'll can touch on that. Touch on that in just a second. You raise an interesting point around like getting in there really, really early, and importantly, your executives, your CEOs, your C team, your VPs, they've got the biggest network of stakeholders and like-minded people who can actually purchase than what you do as a salesperson, right? That's just going to be the reality. The reality is that they know people who can buy, and they have that relationship. So definitely tap them up for a referral. One of the biggest things we encourage all of our BDRs to do and our AEs to do is get onto LinkedIn and connect with all of the C team at their organization. First thing they do, because then they can see their network on LinkedIn. And C levels and I don't sit around on LinkedIn all day, reading people's blogs, but I do have a network which is large enough, which is someone that comes to me and says, hey, I'm trying to crack into this market, or who do you know that who could buy, and I can do some introductions. But in terms of the actual sales motion itself, as I said, executives aren't going to sit there. There will be people listening in who may have to do a very enterprise-focused business, and they've got 3, 4, 5, 6 deals that they need to focus on for the entire quarter. Or, my CEO said to me yesterday, he said, I'm not the kind of person who wants to run 30, 40 sales motions. I'm the kind of guy who wants to run 2 that are $1 million contracts, and I'm going to win one of them, right? So what we think about here is like that Pareto law element to it. You are going to look at your pipeline and you're going to say, this top 10% is worth 60, 70% of my revenue. This top 20% is worth 80% of my revenue. And I'm typically been converting, maybe 30% of them, 40% of them. It's always going to be a decent clip because you're laser focused on winning those larger contracts, and you wouldn't focus all your time and effort if it's speculative. If you can move the needle up 5, 6, 7%, that's going to make a big material difference. And to do that in a down market, people aren't it's a buyer's market, and they're going to be expected of you that you throw a level of appetite to want to win their business. And so the first thing we look at is subject matter expertise. Run the discovery. Great salespeople can run great discovery. Great discovery leads to conversion, right? Or the ability to qualify out. So let's say hypothetically they say, look, I've got an incumbent supply, but I'm not very happy with their service. First thing I want to do is go get my VP of customer success. First thing I want to do is go get my VP of support, customer support, and I want to put them in front of the buyers so they can look. I can eyeball them and they can actually have that conversation. We have an issue with return on investment or cash flow or payment schedules. I want to get my CFO involved. I want to get my head of accounting involved. These are the things where you have subject matter expertise to subject matter expertise. I got an issue with your technology stack and I want to go through your security protocols. I'm going to get my head of security in. Don't expect that you as a salesperson or even me as a VP of commercial knows the ins and outs of all the different aspects of running the entire customer journey, all the dependabilities on why you think that customer is going to buy from you. Let your subject matter experts do it. I'm not a head of customer success. I'm definitely not a software engineer, right? That's what I would suggest. Make sure that you are partnering with your team after discovery. Bring them in. Make sure that they have that direct line of communication, and you're going to be in a much better position.
Let's touch on the last one, which was you started with. It's going to be counterintuitive, and it is counter. I want to get my head around this.
Yeah.
Where he said, don't think about it as net new versus growth.
Yeah.
Focus on LTV.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that. Let's dive a little bit deeper there. What do you mean? Are you saying that, hey, don't focus on landing new accounts? Don't focus on kind of growing the existing account? Or are you saying, hey, overall, just look at an account and see what is the LTV of this potential account and go after that? I'd love to know more in terms of what you meant by that statement.
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot in there. When we think about the new logo piece, we typically, let me take a step back. Businesses go into every year with a plan, and then they get hit in the face because there's a big shifting paradigm, and they're unwilling to be agile to it. when really the core focus of the business is to grow 20% year over year or hit profitability through a certain amount of revenue or whatever the case may be. That's their core. But they've disseminated that target into KPIs and numbers on a screen in terms of net new versus upgrades or whatever the case may be. And the harsh reality is, in a down market, there isn't as much new business. It's there, don't get me wrong, it's definitely there, but you're going to be taking a haircut on revenue. You're probably going to be over-indexing your support. Things that maybe elongate your speed to profitability on that particular transaction. So you have to make a conscious decision as a business of whether or not you can ride that wave. Am I willing to take a slight haircut on conversion of the deal? Am I willing to over-index my support for that deal, like i.e. maybe drop your customer success program down so that it supports a slightly lower value contract? Because the buyers are going to be able to do that because there'll be somebody else in the market. One of your competitors is going to take that logo. So what I think about there is, am I bringing on the right kind of customer for my new logos? I don't just want any logo. And I find that in the market, yes, the market is not flush with new opportunities, not as well as it was, right? People look at that, make the decisions of who they're going to purchase and when they're going to purchase. But a lot of businesses that I find, and we talk to a lot of customers who sell to salespeople and sell to companies, the nature of the environment I operate. And a lot of businesses today in a down market are just trying to find a silver bullet for what's going to save their business. Like they started Q1, they started Q2. In this case, yeah, it depends on what market you're operating in, right? So Q1 or Q2. And all of a sudden there's this big chasm in their forecast and they go, shit, I need to go and fix it, right? So they run around trying to find a piece of technology, or they go and run around trying to find a vendor to make that work. And they're not prepared for it. They don't know how to make that work. And so they come try and find a vendor and they demand a lot. They're not prepared for it. And you end up bringing them on board because you just want a logo, and they'll churn after a year, And really what you've done in most businesses, I'm going to have a CAC payback for 13, 14 months. And if you're much lower than that, then good on you. But so you got this piece, right? Which is, am I winning the right type of logo? Am I bringing on board customers I can see as a long-term customer for me, so for Salesloft in this particular scenario? Because I'm not going to make any money back from them if they churn out in 12 months. I've actually lost money on them, and I've probably not been able to index myself onto other businesses that are going to stay with us in the long term and see profitability. On the churn side, like keeping customers, they are your biggest resource for revenue. I would dare say that any business that says to me, I've capped out my portfolio, probably needs to go to their product team, have a good hard look at them and say, why are we not expanding our product mix? Because we've got very happy customers that are utilizing us across their organization. But the reality there is you've got expansion opportunities, you've got cross-sell opportunities. And if you've got happy customers that using you across the business, using you across your entire product mix, what you have is you've got the ability just simply to slightly increase the price, 7, 8, 9% across your entire portfolio mix. That's going to be, much healthier, easier, more profitable way of driving growth into your organization. So you think about revenue across the life cycle. Don't just think about revenue as new business versus upgrades, and then make sure that you are focusing your attention on how do I best create efficiencies and short-term and immediate wins that make benefit for the business in the long run. Don't get into this weird sidetrack of I've got to win logos, because the business has told you I need to go and win more new business. Because if it's the wrong new business, you'll just be floundering around in 12 months from now trying to save churn. And that's not very helpful.
I love that long-term view on making sure that the LTV is there, but also it's the right fit, because it's hard, right? It's like you have certain numbers that you have to hit. If you're an SDR or an AE, you got to hit those numbers. And some of those numbers are associated with, for example, net new logos. And you're like, whatever, I'm just going to push this through because I got to hit my number. But really that is incentivizing some of the wrong behaviors, and the business is going to have losses in the long run.
The thing is about that is the worst thing you can do as a business leader is to force your reps to do the wrong thing. Reps will do what you tell them to do, because at the end of the day, their job is to manage upwards, make their boss think they're doing great, that they're a team player, that they're all in it together, but really it's the case of your commission structure will dictate the way in which someone operates. So just as if you're a manager out there, listen to your team and say, is my team hitting their number? Or at least, let's say 60% of my team hitting the number. I like a pretty healthy organization, but 60% of the team hitting my number. I'll tell you what, at Salesloft, we found in October, November last year, the BDRs weren't hitting their number. And we said, okay, is this a people problem, a skill problem, or a market problem? The harsh reality is that nobody in the team was hitting their number. That's a system problem. That's a market problem. That's got nothing to do with my team. My team are great. My team didn't forget how to sell between August and September, and then wake up on October the 1st and realize they couldn't sell anymore. So what we did is we just shifted it. We reduced their targets down. We recalibrated the way in which they focused and where they wanted to focus their attention, because we knew that we needed to get them through the storm. Because if I lost my team and they all just left, and or they just sat there in the doldrums not believing they can hit their number, the harsh reality is my team's not, at an aggregate in the short term, I'm not going to make any money, because they're all just disenchanted, disengaged, not being efficient. And in the long term, they're all going to leave. And they're going to remember the way in which you treated them as a manager when the market was down. Did you just make them white knuckle it through a whole 6-7 months until the market returned around again and VCs and PEs decided to get rich again and start money running at the powder, threw powder into the market so everyone grew and the boats rose again? Or did you treat them with a level of dignity and respect to say we're all in it together, because they'll remember that and they'll stay, and my business will become much, much more efficient in the next 12 months?
You talked about the importance of looking at existing customers and the fact that they are your biggest source of revenue.
Uh-huh.
What are some of the tactics that you implement, or you get assistance maybe from marketing or the sales function itself implements to materialize that account expansion?
Yeah. First is, how big is the ocean? So we have a very, very clear view of the value a deal, every logo can bring us. So we know white space, in and out. We do have some tools that we built internally that will allow us just to stack rank it, but we drag a lot of that information in from external resources like LinkedIn Insights. But actually, some of the times it's just, if you got an existing customer, you just ask them, because LinkedIn Insights, no offense to LinkedIn Insights or any of these tools, they can be a little bit off, right? The amount of the amount of businesses, Zoom Info says you've got 800 customers, 800 employees. They did a riff, or they've actually been growing much faster than that. We just haven't updated the data point. So a lot of time we just ask them, how big, how many salespeople do you have? How many people in your revenue org? How many people X, Y, Z? And we just start mapping it out. So what we have is a white space map. That really gives us a clear indication of where we can find growth. You can't sell into businesses that don't have anything to sell into. So that's one. The second thing is we have a very clear view of our product mix within those organizations. So where can we sell additional modules? Where can we sell into different offices? Where can we go international with these businesses, especially in our enterprise business, where really you have a huge amount of opportunity you would expect. Once we know where we can sell new products into new businesses, we typically focus on both. In an ideal world, as a VP of commercial, give me a new user buying, selling, using everything across our product mix, and I'll be a happy man, because it's just going to accelerate much faster, right? You double your revenue on every individual rather than add 10%, 15%, 20% as you add more modules. So we have that. What we then look at in terms of our ability to convert that revenue is a health index. So we have a health index. Everyone can really build one. It doesn't take rocket science. If you haven't got that level of data, I would highly recommend you go and find it. We start with adoption. Are people using us every day? If people log into our platform in the morning and log out of our platform in the evening, you're going to expect a certain level of happiness, customer satisfaction. The second thing we look at is, to validate that customer satisfaction, is the number of tickets. How many tickets are we inquiring from them? The answer is 0 is bad and 1,000 is bad. 0 is I don't care about your product enough to actually ask questions, and 100 is it's probably going wrong. What we look for is that middle ground. We want 5, 10, 15 tickets in our particular market. comparative to others, because it shows that they're interested, they're engaged, but it's probably not material enough to be really bad. And we add that into our matrix. The third thing we look at is executive alignment. So have we actually spoken to a C-level around what their goals are, and have we then been hitting those goals? So we talk about that business value realization before. Buying, at least for Salesloft, buying our technology could be a lot of things. As I said before, we've got lots of different areas in which we can improve. So if a business is coming to us and saying, look, Marcus, I really, really want to buy Salesloft because I need more pipeline. Marcus, I really want to buy Salesloft because I want more efficiency. Marcus, I really want to improve my speed to lead. Marcus, I really want to improve my speed to competency of my ramping reps, whatever the case may be. If we've been hitting those goals, we've now built trust. And fourth, which is probably the biggest one I've left to last, is I have a very clear understanding of my customers' tech stacks. I know who they use. I know when they renew. And so in a down market, I'm not asking for a bigger wallet. I'm asking for the 20 that's already sitting in it. And that is a much, much easier way, because I would dare say that if I've got a happy team who's using Salesloft every day, we're hitting goals, there's a built trust, I know exactly, I've got direct relations with the executive alignment, and I walk in and I say, don't buy that piece of technology again, come and consolidate to us, we're in a much better position.
That's such a great list. I mean, the adoption component, you talked about, understanding, well, you first talked about kind of mapping the white space, then understanding who are other technology players in there, talked about adoption, the number of tickets is a great way. I love that of kind of assessing how much they love it. It also probably correlates to adoption, but I love that, the executive alignment, and then getting a really good understanding of the tech stack. That's such a comprehensive list.
I tell you, a sort of trick on the ticket thing is usually you find that the ticket's a direct reflection of really unhappy, disenchanted users or power users, and them in themselves become a really valuable customer voice. If I want to crack a market, I don't speak to a senior manager or a operations manager. I'll definitely be sitting there talking to them about their M1s, their M2s, their goals, their OKRs, however you want to describe it. But if we really want to get into the heartbeat of a team, go speak to the user that's really disenchanted with your product. They'll tell you everything you need to know, because they're the ones who are the most vocal to your manager saying, I hate this piece of technology, or I love this piece of technology. And that is, I've never, ever found a VP of sales worth their weight, or a CEO or a CRO that doesn't listen to their team, for what it's worth.
Yeah. And Marcus, once you capture this information, what do you do? Do you kind of like give them a weight and then turn them into, you talked about the health index, turn them into that index? Yeah. What happens afterwards?
There's two things actually. One is, in a down market, be proactive, not reactive. So the proactivity piece would be, do you have a rhythm of business to engage with your customer base, and have you prioritized it? So it might be, have you given your team, talking to a manager here, or even as an individual rep, have you given yourself the opportunity, or what I call an event, to have a conversation with your customer? Right? That could be just simply a monthly check-in. It could be a more robust QBR. It could be a success plan. These are all things that can be proactively driven into your customer base, that gives you an opportunity to get that relationship and have that engagement around, how are you feeling about this partnership? If you're doing that laser focused into the businesses with the most white space, now you can really control the agenda and the narrative. Worst case scenario, you walk out of those QBRs of success plans, those meets, and they tell you how much they hate you and you're completely wrong and you have to go and fix it. Best case is you open up a conversation about how happy they are, and you give yourself an opportunity to start expanding and having that conversation. If you're really, really clever with it, you can time it even better around their buying cycles. So when do they buy you? And maybe you turn it into a renewal conversation, and you extend that renewal, and you can renegotiate your terms at that point and expand you expand your footprint with them, or you do it timely within, say, 3 or 4 months of a renewal of one of their competitors that you've got written down. So as they go into this procurement cycle of looking at their vendors, can I get myself in there when they're in that buying open mindset, that buying mindset, and just give them that opportunity. So they're the two things that we would typically do. Be very, very proactive around it, give yourself an opportunity. And then do it, as I said before, like really early days in this conversation would be conscious of who you put in the room. So if it's one of your really big white space customers that are actually also one of maybe your larger customers right now, bring along we bring along our C team, we bring along our VPs, we bring around our subject matter expertise that they're in the moment, because trying to get, and we obviously ask on the flip side from our champions and our really heavy users and our DMs to bring their C team along as well, and then we get this one conversation started and it really starts to expand quickly, because otherwise you're piecemealing it and that becomes quite difficult to get down into the how can I get all that buying committee in the room at any one time.
Love it. That's a great blueprint of basically everything that we spoke about of thinking about approaching generating revenue in a down market. I love that. I want to ask you some rapid fire questions, but before I do that, do you think there's anything else that maybe I haven't touched on, or you think it's important for us to cover about everything that we've been talking about?
I don't know. I've been soapboxing for 30 minutes now, mate. So, I think I kind of touched on it, but the thing is that in a down market, you need to find time to breathe. My team told me the other day that sometimes it feels like every day is the last day of Q4, because you're doing more, you're trying to do more with less constantly. And so if you're a manager out there, I'd highly recommend that you just give yourself and your teams an opportunity to vent and talk about how difficult it is and talk about how hard it is, and just give them an opportunity to decompress, and make sure that even as a manager, maybe you could do it just by having really clear, defined work-life balance, something as simple as that. Like, I promise not to call you after 6 o'clock unless it's absolutely urgent, or even 5 o'clock. One of the things we employed here is when we use Slack as our communication tool internally, like a lot of businesses. And one of the things we enforced was scheduled messages. It's okay if I'm working till 8, 9 o'clock at night. It's not okay to expect my team to work at 8 o'clock at 9 o'clock at night. But if they get a little Slack message on their phone or their smartwatch pop up and it's from me, they're going to jump on it, for better or worse, right? It could just be like, hey, how's your day? But they jump on it. And that doesn't help, right? And you want the team fresh as much as you possibly can. So I would highly recommend you just let everyone breathe. And we haven't really touched on that, but it's important. All of these things are more with less. It's harder. There's more steps. There's more documentation. There's more risk. There's more everything. And it matters as much as we push and we push and we push and we push and we push. We set targets when the market was flush, and we're operating when the market is down. And so it's always going to be harder. And remember that the boats will rise again. They always do. Rich people like to become rich. And, the reality is that investors won't just wait around forever, never to put money back into the market. They're going to do it, and they're going to do it soon. And your team will remember the way in which you treated them during that time, before that time.
Such great points. I mean, I love that quote. Every day feels like it's the last day of Q4.
Yeah.
That's so good. And I feel like it's so true in so many different situations. Love that. Thank you very much for that last point.
Have you read the State of ABM and APAC report yet? If you have, you'll know that 59% of marketing leaders are intending to increase their ABM investment in the coming year. Even bigger news is 0% of survey respondents are going to decrease their investment. It's an exciting time for ABM in the region. Discover the state of account-based marketing in APAC today. Download the full report at abm.xgrowth.com.au/report. That's abm.xgrowth.com.au/report.
Let's do some rapid fire questions.
Yeah, go for it.
First one, Marcus, what is one resource? It could be a book, a blog, a podcast, a talk, an article, whatever it is that has had a profound impact on the way you work or live.
Oh, can I have a demo request of salesloft.com? No, I was thinking, the one that's really resonated with me is, originally it was Never Split the Difference, right? Chris Voss, really classic sales book of how to negotiate. But actually what I find is I'm really into the Black Swan Consulting blog, which is his consulting team. It's his consulting company, not just the book, because Never Split the Difference is a classic, but it's been around for years and years and years now. And actually, the Black Swan Consulting Group is more in the moment, and it's really good if you are, an individual contributor or a sales manager, about how thinking about the psychology of negotiations and negotiate when the market is, as I said, like not flush and it's a buyer's market. It's important to be able to find those marginal gains on every single deal, and so that's one that I've been resonating with a lot at the moment. So yeah, I would go with, as it's rapid fire, I won't keep on talking. We'll keep with that one.
That's great. That's great. I mean, love Never Split the Difference, but I have never checked the Black Swan blog, so that has definitely gone on my list of things to check out.
It's great every, and it's also not spammy. You don't get it every day. You get it probably once or twice a week, and it's it's always really impactful stuff and really practical.
Love it. Question 2: what do you, if you could give one piece of advice to B2B sales and marketers, what would it be?
Sales and marketers, and you're on the same team. Don't get bogged down in your own data, your own dashboards, or your own data, or how much pipeline you built compared to they built, or how that opportunity isn't any good. And, I wish the opportunity was like this, or I wish the opportunity was like that. The reality is that it never really makes a difference when it all goes in the end, and it goes into the end pot. And so you should just, in a down market, as we keep on theme, is over communicate. Are you selling in a shifting paradigm? Does that messaging work? And make sure that you are aligned to what that messaging is, so that you've got a really clear view of did it or didn't work. And what I mean by that is, as your product is shifting, or as your go-to-market messaging is shifting, is what you're saying in your ads and what you're saying on your website a reflection of what the SDR or the BDR says to the market? Is a reflection of how you shape your discovery calls and your agenda of your meetings, so that you can actually see it? That's an important one. We find that ads change, campaigns change, but our messaging doesn't change. And then we turn around and say the campaign didn't work. Campaign probably did work. We just didn't test it.
Got it. Question 3: who are some of the influencers that you follow?
I'll say something very controversial, which I don't follow any link fluers. All those LinkedIn influencers that are amazing in their own right because they've told themselves they are, and therefore you should follow them. There's obviously some good ones on there that have done it and been there before, but there's also some ones who are just great at the Instagramization of LinkedIn. And so for anyone listening out there, validate the people you are following. Have they done it before, or are they just spitting crap? It might sound good, but reality sometimes is it's just making sure they can tell you the right stories of when and how it worked. I'm a big fan of a guy called Thomas Tugush. He's a venture capitalist. He worked at Redpoint, and he's got a great blog that he talks about the market architecture a lot. I think that's really helpful. As I said, Black Swan Consulting is a good one for me as well. From a marketing perspective, I'm a big fan of Dave Gerhardt. He was the former CMO of Drift. I think he's got a new community now that he's just recently launched, and that's been a really valuable asset because he talks in a real language, and he's been in and he's done it. He's built small businesses and large businesses. The other fine thing I find, not an influencer per se, it would be I'm a big fan in Europe of, say, Balderton Capital. They bring out a lot of what the market's like, and they bring out a lot of stories. And that's been really valuable for me as well, just like understanding the architecture of how money is flowing. And money flowing typically allows me to make much wiser decisions around where should I focus my teams.
Got it. And they're called Boulders and Capital, is that right?
Boulders and Capital is probably one of the larger investment funds over here in Europe. And there's a lot of funds, but these guys are really good at bringing out some amazing articles and content to educate the market. So they've been really valuable.
Interesting. Thanks for that list. Last question: what is something that excites you about B2B today?
That it is becoming more and more a profession that people can be proud of. Like, I've been doing sales since I was very young. I was 16 years old, and I set up my very first little company selling online music rights of all things, back when like MySpace and Pure Volume was around, which is throwback if anyone who's listening and knows what they are. Some people listening probably haven't even been born yet. And sales was this thing that has made my career. It's made my life, right? I'm very happy with my life. I'm very proud of the life I've built. But sales was there. But I do remember 10, 15 years ago, people were like, well, what do you do? And you're like, I'm a salesperson. And the connotation of that was negative, right? It was like door knocking or, fraudulent behavior, or, the old cliche of used car salesman, annoying. And I think that I'm really excited by this push that as people have understood that you can't displace the humanization of sales, that it's started to be the thing that people really do invest in. Like, it's always been a relatively well-paying industry if you're good at it. But I think that there's definitely this view now that it can be the kind of thing that you can really make a good life and career out of. And so that's what that's led to, is the gravitation of really intelligent, really clever people leaning into wanting to be in sales more so than maybe working in finance, because the earning potential is there, but the work-life balance is better. And so I'm really excited by that concept, the concept that we're still in that primordial ooze of what does sales become, now that there is a vocationalization of it, more so than, how'd you get into sales? Oh, I just fell into it one day. It was like, no, I made a conscious decision to go into sales because it's the kind of thing that I know I can make an impact with, and I enjoy it. I enjoy solving problems for customers. I enjoy relationship management. I enjoy the capitalization of things. I enjoy the way companies work, and that's why I got into it. And I think that that's a really exciting thing, because I've definitely seen it in the caliber of sales teams and the individuals and the backgrounds of the people that we now bring into the org, comparative to what I was bringing in say like the early 2000s.
Very true. Very true. I completely agree with you. I think that the sales profession is viewed very differently now than it was before, and it's a great point.
Yeah,
Marcus, this is a great chat. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I really enjoyed this conversation. There's so much golden nuggets that you dropped. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Today's episode of Growth Colony was produced by Alexander Hipwell and Liza Maywald. It was edited by Dave Samito, with additional editing by Liza Maywald and music arrangement by Alexander and Liza. Special thanks to Tina Wabe. We couldn't make the show without you. Growth Colony is hosted by Shaheen Hoda, Director of Growth at Xgrowth. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Do you think you'd be a great guest or just keen for a chat? Send through an email at podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's all for now. We'll catch you next week, right here on Growth Colony.